Bitcoin is continuing to bounce from the 112 target. I'm going to ask the question, does this rally continue and lead to new all-time highs, or are we in for a retest or potentially lower prices? I'm going to get into the data on today's video. So if this sounds like something you're interested in, please do smash the like, help support the channel. I'm trying to get these videos out for you every single day, keep you completely up to date with what's going on with the markets, how I see it. So we'll dive straight into Bitcoin then. And Bitcoin, you can see, has been respecting our daily 50 moving average. We've got that coming up as support now, just above the 112,000, so about 112,500, 112,600. As long as we keep holding that, and of course, the path is going to be higher. And that is personally where I'm leaning towards based on this price action, based on this recovery that we've seen. But I think it is worth saying a lot is going to depend on what happens in the stock market as to what happens with crypto. Obviously, it's absolutely no secret that we're going into what are seasonally weak months in August, September. For stocks, we usually see some sort of pullback in August or September, or sometimes both, leading into a bit of a September low, which can then be followed by strength going into the end of the year. And part of me's just been thinking, like, what's the actual trap? Like, how do people get stuck in their positions? How do people actually get into a situation where they lose money over the next few months? And I've been thinking on basically two separate scenarios. And one scenario is that we recover from here and we actually front run the strength in Q4, because everybody seems to be talking about this Q4 strength. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, if everybody expects there to be this nice big juicy dip in September, that we sort of come down lower, maybe to the 108, but below 110 over the next month if we continue this chop and consolidation, and then we run off to an explosive blow off top all-time high, and we all just sell all of our crypto bags at much higher prices and go off into the sunset and we've made loads of money. Fantastic. That sounds great. But in reality, that isn't usually the fate of the majority of market participants. Usually, most people end up losing their money. So I'm thinking to myself, how do people get trapped here? Well, if you look at sentiment right now, sentiment seems to all be agreeing that we have to be seeing some sort of dip over the next few months, that we're going to have a weak Q3 followed by a strong Q4. So what happens if actually the tables are turned and we actually have a strong Q3 and a weak Q4? So what that would look like is obviously Bitcoin breaking out of this here, going on maybe some sort of crazy run up in September, a very shallow pullback in September, and maybe we get a blow off top in October, when many people are thinking that actually October is going to be a strong month. That's when they're looking to get back into the market, position into the market if they sold and de-risked in Q3. And maybe that's how they get trapped. And of course, lots of bullish news would accompany this. And we would see people not wanting to sell because they think, look, everything's so bullish. And they hold throughout what would be a weaker November, a weaker December. And then obviously, next thing you know, before they know it, they're holding into a bear market next year. That is one potential scenario that I think we have to be aware of, which is why I'm not letting myself get too bullish, too bearish here. Of course, the alternative is that actually this does happen, but of course, pullbacks just get front run. And I think that is one thing to be aware of, that potentially we do see the Q3 weakness, but it's more shallow than people think. It traps people. It looks like it's going to roll over. People get more bearish, that actually those downside targets don't get hit. And we see maybe a quicker acceleration, a faster acceleration in October, November. And again, people haven't quite managed to get their orders filled. People haven't quite managed to capitalize how they thought they would do because they've got shaken out of the market. So there's a couple of scenarios that I'm putting on the table here. Obviously, the second scenario and the more, I think, universally held scenario would be something like this, where we do pump into August. We see that sort of shallow pullback in September and we blast off higher, and potentially we top out in December. But of course, the other thing I'm saying is this could all be accelerated. And actually what we see is the sort of dip be a lot more shallow than people think. and we peak in October a lot sooner than people think. And I think this would also catch a lot of people out. So there's two paths I've got on the table there. Both of them assume that we go higher from this position. There is probably also going to be a more bearish path that I could do. So that would be if we do reject from here and we come down lower, but actually the September weakness gets front run and we see actual recovery in September, and again we sort of take off, and that is all we're going to get. So, like I say, this would be, if I change the color of this, if I can, that would be a more sort of bearish path, I guess. Maybe we don't come as high in that scenario. Maybe we just end up taking out these highs and putting a bit more of a trap in. So maybe we get up to about 125 in that scenario. I think that would be what I'd be expecting. So yeah, I mean, sort of three sort of general paths here, and obviously I think this can take us up to around that 100 sort of 40, maybe 150,000 would be sort of higher end target. Lower end target would be around sort of 125. So these are different outcomes that I'm seeing right now for Bitcoin. I guess we'll just have to, well, you'll just have to tune it and see which path it does follow. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking on the Bitcoin front. Obviously, looking at this in the shorter term, we can see we just really want to see strength to keep on holding this 50-day moving average and see if we can break out from this bull flag, which should lead us up to higher prices. And obviously, like I say, I'm still thinking basically over a 60% chance, I think, that we still have a new all-time high to make in August before a slowdown in September. Maybe that slowdown is more prolonged, in which case we bottom and start to go higher in October, or maybe it is a shorter, faster one, in which case I think we could accelerate sooner. If not, failing that, then of course, what we might do is we might see that September weakness get front run. So there's all different possibilities. Obviously, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what is going to happen exactly. But all of this leads us to what would be a cycle top really between the middle of October and the start of December. Like I say, I don't know if we will go on that long. I really think it will happen for Bitcoin at least in October or November. So I'll just bring that forward slightly. And obviously from there, we could be going into a more prolonged bear market. And I expect obviously very, very bullish news to accompany these highs whenever they come in, to make people think that this cycle will go on for much, much longer. I've already heard people talking about this with, the new SEC chairman coming in and some of the stuff that's coming out around penalizing banks that are anti-crypto. This is the typical kind of news flow that you hear right at the end of the cycle, this really bullish news that seems to get pushed out right at the wrong time, that obviously gets the maximum amount of people trapped in at the cycle highs. So that's Bitcoin. Obviously, I want to touch briefly on stocks as well, because they really seem to be leading what's going on right now with the crypto market. So we can see we are in a slightly risky place when it comes to the stock market, because we have this Tom DeMark 9 sell that has appeared on the 4 hour, and we are coming into an area of interest in terms of a bearish retrace. So you can see we're literally at the 618.65, which is the golden pocket retrace of this move on the S&P. So of course, this would be an ideal area for the S&P to start to reverse. We've got exactly the same setup on the Nasdaq as well, not getting quite as high into that golden pocket, but it's retraced over 50%. It's also finding now resistance from the 4 hour 50 moving average. And if we look on the daily chart as well, you can see that we had this massive bullish engulfing yesterday, which was really, really encouraging to see from the bulls to actually step up like this. So what I'm really looking for now is, do we get follow through? Do we manage to break through some of these Fibonacci retracement levels, both on the S&P and the Nasdaq, or do we find resistance from these 4 hour 50 moving averages and the Tom DeMark sells, and do we actually start to come down and retrace some of this move? Really remains to be seen. Obviously, earnings have been quite strong for the stock market over the last couple of weeks, and yeah, for me, it's a little bit of a coin toss here as to whether we reject or keep going higher. I can see, I can absolutely see why people would want to de-risk here. I absolutely can. So look, if you wanted to potentially take a head short, or if you wanted to maybe get out of certain positions. Maybe you're not too happy with the entries on those positions. I can understand why some traders will want to do that on the basis that, look, we might come down and retrace some of that move. We might come back into some of these longer term moving averages. I don't know if we'll get all the way back down to the 200 on the 4 hour, but of course, just looking at the daily here, we've seen a nice reaction yesterday, and yeah, for me, it's a real coin toss to see what the markets do from here. It's good to see we're back above these sort of green daily bands here. Usually, we respect these and hold these as support. We've not respected them on this push lower. So of course that would lead me to believe that we could come down a little bit lower. Maybe we want to tag the 50-day moving average on the daily, on the S&P, on the Nasdaq as well. That's just going to be a little bit lower from the current low. So I'm completely open to the idea of there being one more low to put in on this pullback. I'm also open to the idea that we could push on from here. I know it's one of these, well, we might do this, we might do that, we might go down. But yeah, it's really unclear to me. Like I say, at the moment, I'm leaning bullish for some of the reasons mentioned. Also, if we just look at the liquidity heat map, we can see that we do have quite a lot of liquidity building up either side of current prices on Bitcoin. So if it wants to load up, I think you'll see the majority of liquidity is still above price. So I would really expect the market makers to want to target that before pulling us lower. We can kind of see here, we have this build up here at around about 116K. So I would think a quick move, maybe at the open up to around 116 and a half, 117, could then set us up for coming down lower. Um, let's just check on the 2 day, see, might be a little bit more visible and apparent on this one. Yeah, so we have quite a bit down here around about 113. If they did want to sweep us lower one more time, um, that is, yeah, it's really pretty even on this data. So yeah, there's not too much really we can gauge from this at the moment. It's like I say, we've had the initial sell-off, impulse lower. We've now had the retrace, the pullback. So it's the $1 million question: do things start to roll over from here and come back down and retest these lows, or are we able to push up? And then what I'd really be looking to see for confirmation of Bitcoin going higher from here will be a breakout of this bear flag, and for the stock market to get above some of its key retracement levels around those 618s. If I can see that, then potentially we could get some relief up to the 0.78 retracements. Let's just yeah, 0.786 retracements would be what I'd be looking at if we can push through there. There are danger zones. You've got a danger zone here, and you've basically got a danger zone up here. And then obviously if we clear through that, then it will be quite apparent to me that we're going to make new all-time highs this month, which would obviously catch offside those people that have positioned to the short side. And as you can see again today, we looked at the VIX yesterday. The VIX is coming down, currently under 18. So yesterday when I did the video, we were just above 19. I was saying if we can get and stay below 19, then it will be risk on again. And at the moment, you can see we're working on coming back down, retracing a lot of this move. So again, with the VIX, it's like, how much do we come down to? Where are we in terms of our retracements? Okay, we seem to be losing the 618s at the moment, and that golden pocket. So if we can close below here, then that would lead me to believe that stocks likely do push up on today's session, and the rally for Bitcoin continues a bit higher, maybe up to that 116 and a half, 117 target, and then we need to reanalyze and look at things again. Just out of interest, just obviously looking along the current returns here, We can see that Solana actually green on the day. So one of the few altcoins that is up to date is Solana. Solana is one that I am bullish on. I do have a long trade. I do think that Solana does play catch up at some point. It has been a bit weaker than some of the others. We can see that we've back tested into some support here. I think it was on the daily that I showed this moving average cluster coming back to the mid 160s was the target. We overshot that slightly. That's fine. That's obviously what we would call a liquidity grab deviation. We then managed to get back above those key supports and back above those moving averages, and we seem to be pushing on. So Solana looking very strong today. Some of the others as well. Sui has found that moving average support as well. Seems to be trying to turn around. Ethereum, I'm going through these in a bit of a reverse order today, but Ethereum as well, really strong bounce coming into that 3,350 and has bounced up nicely. So, you know, some of these altcoins are still showing some good strength, some good bounces here, and that pretty much fits in with what's going on with dominance. I'll just check on dominance. We can see dominance very much struggling, Bitcoin dominance, to get above this recent high here, around about the sort of 62.5 level. And yeah, it seems to be breaking back below what is a horizontal level that I've got on this chart. So we can see like this long-term horizontal, which is basically the high from back in sort of late 2024. If we close below that and we start to lose some of these moving average, this is the 300-day moving average, then of course that could lead to that expansion in the alt season. So this isn't really telling me right now that we're going to see some major correction or major pullback, or else we'd expect to see the alts getting hit a lot harder. Dominance obviously running higher. We can just see tether dominance as well that has sort of run up and has basically retested the area of the breakdown, which is around about this 4.6, and seems to be coming off again. So these would indicate that the rally's still on and that we're going to see higher prices. So Bitcoin, as I speak, just back above 115,000. Let's see where we go from here. I think I'm going to wrap it up there. So just to recap then on Bitcoin, still looking okay here for me. Looks like price wants to dig in. The VIX is obviously coming lower. Stock market green on the day. Solana showing some relative strength. So I think for now, let's wait and see what happens over these next couple of days. This is going to be a really big 24 hours, in my opinion, to see what happens with the market today. Do we see that rejection, especially when the US opens up? Do we see that rejection and come back down and retest the lows again, potentially looking to go lower? Or are we able to push through some of these key resistance levels, both on the stock market with the Fibonacci retracements and Bitcoin? And can we break out from this bull flag and see higher prices in August? Obviously, my default, I'm leaning bullish right now still. I do still think that we can turn around from here and see higher prices soon. I'm expecting acceleration into the final phase of the bull run. So it's going to be a big 24 hours to wait to see what happens. I'm going to wrap it up there. So thank you again very much for watching. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all on the next one. GM.